fantastic. How are you?
Fine. Now you've had time to, take everything in. You've had time to reflect on your journey. How are you feeling about things today?
Yesterday, I was in a pretty bad headspace. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I was really sad. It's hard to not only have your dream cut short, but
Right.
for it to go down the way that it did. You do a lot of healing at Ponderosa after the
Yeah.
game is over, and you close those wounds, and then all of a sudden, you get closer and closer to your vote out episode, and all the pain and the fear of disappointing people, it all comes rushing back in, and you wonder, how are they going to show my story unfold? How are they going to tell my story? And
Yeah.
so for it to be told in the way that it did, it was hard. It was really painful to watch.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I mean, I've been, watching the series since the very beginning and covering it for almost the same amount of time. You were my
Wow.
pick to win.
Stop.
I don't
Oh
know.
my God. I'm
I don't
so
know if
sorry.
usually it has to do with like the edit and the tone, and you just from watching it for so long, you get this sense. And I really did think that you were the winner of this season based on everything that was happening. Now I know on the episode they showed a lot of the paranoia. They focused a lot on that. Tell us what happened. Is that what was the core of why you got voted out? And if so, what made you so paranoid? Because I understand from talking to so many other people that it's like, well, when people stop talking to you, when people go off on their own, you can't help but to think what's going on.
All right. Well, John, I'm just going to have a little fun with you. Do you honestly think that the reason I got voted out was just because I was paranoid?
If the reason the one if they show just one reason, it usually isn't. Let's put it
Right.
that way.
Right. No, in all fairness, my vote out that specific night was definitely because I got paranoid.
Right.
However, in my mind, my paranoia was justified in the sense that earlier that day, Gio and I were on the beach.
Mhm.
Gio and I didn't talk a bunch of strategy. And that was very intentional on my part. I'm not a great liar, and
Right.
I love Gio very much. We had some amazing moments out there on the island, but he was my target from day one,
Yeah.
for 9 straight days. And Gio was very aware that it was me coming after him. But I didn't talk a lot of strategy with him because I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to have these like false niceties of like, oh, let's vote somebody else out. So
Right.
I kept my distance with him. But that day on the island, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, Lindsay, I just want to give you a heads up, and I'm warning you because I love you and I want to have your back." He said, "I think you might be the vote tonight." He said, Ryan wants to vote for you. He thinks you're a threat, and I'm concerned for your game." And that's where all of a sudden you see me start to scramble. There's a reason why you don't see me scrambling for 9 days before that. And that's because I felt like I had a really safe spot in my alliance.
Now, what was it about? You said you were targeting Gio from the beginning. What was it
Sure.
about him or his game that made you feel that way?
Okay. Um, there are a couple of things. I think before I even got to understand the dynamics of my tribe and how we work together.
Yeah.
I was frustrated after the marooning challenge. Gio was pretty adamant about doing the running portion of that challenge. He said, "I'm a great runner. I can do well." And
Hmm.
he didn't do well. And I thought to myself, I need to work with someone that is self-aware. And
Right.
if Gio wasn't able to recognize that, like, maybe that wasn't his strong suit in the challenge, that like maybe I can't trust his decision making moving
Yeah.
forward. And then once our feet hit the beach and we start socializing with everyone, I didn't make it a secret that I wanted to have an all women's alliance. But I wasn't willing to just do any all women's alliance. I wasn't going to pick just any woman, like put me
Right.
on an island with two insufferable women and like, I'm not going to play with them. But I loved Carla and Cassidy, and we had a great thing going on. We had a great dynamic, and James and I like really bonded. So I kind of talked with them, and we created like a really solid four. And then I couldn't let go of Ryan, at least not that soon.
Yeah.
Closer to the merge, I would have been willing to let him go. But my strategy in the game was to stay tribe strong in the first portion of the game. I wanted to be an asset in challenges. I wanted to be an asset around camp. I felt like I had a lot to prove to everybody else in the game because I was the oldest person on my tribe. I wanted to show them that like I'm valuable. I wanted to use that time to show them that you can trust me in a game where you can't trust anybody. Like I'll be your person. You know, you can trust me. And
Right.
I underestimated their ability to trust me. I just naturally assumed that my demeanor and my age and me being a nurse and my personality, that they would just automatically buy into this Lindsay's a trustworthy person. But in this new era, you can't trust anybody. Like if you're going out to play this game of Survivor, like, you know, the game of Survivor, you know, there's a lot of strategy that comes with playing the game. And I underestimated their ability to like really trust me and trust that I would stay solid with them.
Yeah, watching the show, we saw a lot of it was spearheaded by Carla, or so it seemed. Were you surprised by that? Because she seemed like, again, full in on the alliance and was working well with you guys.
Carla was playing both sides. And while Carla wanted Gio to go, my paranoia, and Carla deserves credit for this. Carla didn't take me out because I was getting paranoid. Carla used that as an excuse to get rid of me because Carla was so scared that I would figure out that she was playing both sides. When she saw Gio and I having multiple conversations on the beach that day, and then she found out that Gio was giving me information, she thought, if Gio's willing to tell Lindsay that she's the target based off of what Ryan told him, what else is Gio willing to tell Lindsay? Right. Gio clearly wants to keep Lindsay in this game. You know, Gio and Carla were also having some issues. Gio wanted to be the one that led the vote that night, and he didn't want Carla to get the credit for taking me out, which was why Gio was willing to say like, hey, I want to be the one calling the shots. I want to be in charge. If people are throwing out Lindsay's name, I want to be the one that makes the decision that it's Cassidy going home. That's why Gio voted for Cassidy that night. He didn't want me to go home.
Now, what led to all of this, obviously, you guys going to tribal councils, the loss at the challenge. We saw what happened during the challenge. I wrote about this in my recap saying, I'm not all for this. I mean, this used to happen in Big Brother too. There was a little bit of cribbing of notes, and they kind of took care of that. What was going on in your minds when this was happening live during the challenge? And, you know, two teams were obviously joining forces against you.
So I'm so laser focused. Like when I'm in challenges, I'm an incredibly, I don't know if you know this or not, but like I am incredibly competitive. I hate losing. It's one of my toxic traits in life. But I was really frustrated that I wasn't put on the puzzle that day at the immunity challenge, especially because I had sat out at the reward challenge, and and I was frustrated that we had lost in that. I don't blame anybody for that specifically, but I was ready to play, and I was ready to play hard, and I really wanted to win for my tribe. So I was so laser focused on trying to help Carla and Ryan solve that puzzle that I didn't even notice that they were helping each other until the challenge was over and Jeff made a comment about it. Right. And then it was like just rage took over me. I mean, you guys don't see it, but I actually kind of like looked at the other tribes and like I threatened them, and I'm like, oh, is that how it's going to be? Because we'll come for you. Like, we'll come for you. But when in the immunity challenge where Ryan or James and Noelle get chosen to go on the journey, right? Dwight had asked Baca to pick Noelle to go on that journey, and Baca picked Noelle. So when Dwight and Noelle were helping Baca with that puzzle, that was Dwight and Noelle's way of saying like, you guys did us a solid last time, like here we are helping you out. And they were kind of trying to like even things out. While I do think it's unfair, I'm a firm believer that like anything goes. And so if that's the way the tribes want to work together, like that's fine, but there are going to be consequences. Unfortunately, I didn't get to follow up with that because I got voted out.
Now we saw, obviously Cody got to come and he got to negotiate with you guys and he got to steal. I would have stolen the machete, but that's just me. Right. I mean, if you're going to play, you might as well go all out. Right. Yeah. So we saw what happened during all those negotiations, but what we didn't, and you were a large part of that, trying to, manipulate him, trying to get him to convince him of certain things. What happened afterwards? What was your guys' feelings about everything that had happened? Were you happy? Were you upset? What was the general consensus? Because we didn't see much of that.
My takeaway from it, my biggest concern was that he was going to take our machete. I
Yeah.
really, after seeing them work together, and I was honestly so surprised that they were willing to be so open about it,
Yeah.
that I realized they're really coming for us. In the first immunity challenge, you don't see it, but our tribe won by like a good hour. I mean, we were sitting
Wow.
after we had solved that puzzle. We sat there for a very long period of time. The other two tribes knew how strong we were. And so I felt like they were willing to do whatever it took to break us up and make sure that we did not continue winning. So my biggest fear was that they were going to take our machete or our pot, which we used all day, every day.
Yeah.
So when Cody came, Cody basically said like, hey, I'm just this like guy from Hawaii who's here to have fun, and Dwight's calling the shots, and he's the mastermind on our beach. And by the way, my tribe really wants me to take your machete and like cut you guys off, but I'm not trying to like make you guys mad. I want to work together with you guys at the merge.
Right.
My tribe's going to be so pissed at me when we get back, which wasn't true at all. Like they wanted him to take the fishing gear. So when he took the fishing gear, I was so grateful. I was like, here, have some food, take whatever you want. But at that point, like they all were really struggling. They weren't eating out there. And that's when like the mom and the nurse and me just kicked in. Like if I can give them a solid and like give them some food and some limes for our lime growth, like let him have it. You know, I felt like it would help him or motivate him to work with us a little bit more come the merge.
Right. Now, I always ask this of everyone I talk to, but I mean, obviously it's you know, the cameras are there filming 24 hours a day. We only get to see a small fraction of that. So is there anything, whether it be a strategy, whether it was a bond you had, whether it was a moment, what do you wish of your journey? What do you wish the viewers would have seen? Is there anything that comes to mind that you wish they would have showed more of or showed?
I wish they would have shown more of my social game. You know, I think you guys got to see how well I was doing physically out there. You guys got to see a little bit of how we were living on the island, but I had really good relationships with each person individually. The conversations that we were having out there, the way that we would play off each other, some of the games that we would play at night. You know, we sat up at night and would sit on our beach under our shelter and play Never Have I Ever. We would play bocce ball, and we had a really good time out there. And to be honest with you, I think if they had shown a little bit more of our tribe dynamic, it would have made the shock of them sending me home hit a little bit harder to the fans. You know, we were 4 strong the entire time I was out there, up until a couple of hours before that I was going home. And I think you guys would have been more shocked and more heartbroken that they sent me packing had you seen just how tight we were out there.
Well, I got to say, my wife's Italian family would have loved if they showed the bocce ball for sure. But but thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today. Again, you were my pick, so I'm kind of crossing my fingers, hoping that maybe your survivor journey isn't over. Maybe we'll get to see you play again. You never know. So it was
John, don't give up on me. Don't give up on me.
I won't. But yeah, it was great watching you. Thanks for taking the time today, and all the best of luck in the future. And thanks very much.
Thanks, John. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.